All right, welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty intense this week. The first week of Trump's second term.
Yeah, you could say it's been a little bit of a whirlwind.
It's been crazy. To help us unpack all of this, we have this mock podcast script, The Trump Era Returns. And let me tell you, it paints a pretty wild picture.
Some interesting scenarios for sure.
Yeah. So let's just dive in, okay? Because there's a lot to cover. Like, starting with the pardons. Over 1,500. And a lot of them connected to the January 6th Capitol riot. I mean, is this justice or a dangerous precedent?
Well, pardons can be a powerful tool for healing, for moving forward. But, yeah, they also raise those concerns about accountability.
Right.
And in this case, some people are saying this undermines the rule of law.
Totally.
Imagine, like, if future protests knew they could be pardoned.
Oh, wow.
What kind of message does that send?
That's a great point. And I'm not even sure where I land on this one. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's a real balancing act. But what I find really striking is how this kind of ties into a larger theme, Trump's disregard for traditional norms. We see it with the pardons, but also with the rapid policy changes.
Okay, let's talk about that, because he pulled the U.S. out of the WHO, the Paris Agreement, reversed course on diversity programs, and even created a whole new department. And this was all in, what, like 7 days?
It's definitely unprecedented.
Yeah.
And it seems to suggest that there is a very deliberate strategy here to make a mark early on. And it's particularly focused on reversing policies from previous administrations.
Right. Speaking of unprecedented, this new department, it's called DOGE. Is that like a joke? I mean, even if it's about streamlining government operations, it's hard to take seriously with that name.
Right. Yeah, it's a head scratcher for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are arguing it's just, Trump being Trump, like, throwing out the norms and embracing a more casual approach. But others are worried it's a distraction from the real issues at hand. And centralizing government operations could have, some major implications. Just depends how it's implemented.
It's like we need a whole other deep dive just to unpack that. Okay, the script also mentions some interesting personnel moves. Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, that's a big one.
Yeah. Rubio's appointment is, well, it's intriguing considering, some of his past stances on foreign policy. This could signal a pretty significant shift in the administration's approach.
Yeah.
And his confirmation also coincided with the passage of the Laken Riley Act, which is super controversial.
Yeah, refresh my memory on that one. What does the Laken Riley Act actually do?
Essentially, it aims to speed up deportations and make it harder to claim asylum in the U.S. Supporters say it's about border security. Critics are calling it inhumane and potentially even illegal under international law.
Wow.
This could become a major legal battle with lasting impacts on immigration policy.
So much to unpack there. And then there's the bombshell, that massive Saudi investment, $600 billion. Is that purely economic, or is there like a deeper geopolitical strategy at play here?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but some analysts see this as a move by the Saudis to gain more leverage over U.S. energy policy, which is interesting considering Trump's America First focus on energy independence. Could this investment actually undermine that goal? I don't know.
It feels like there's a lot of potential ripple effects here. What are your thoughts on, how this might impact, let's say, energy prices or even international relations?
It's definitely a complex web, for sure.
Yeah.
The Saudis, they've always been a major player in the global energy market. But this investment takes things to a whole new level, and it raises questions about U.S. dependence on foreign energy sources, even as Trump pushes for that domestic production. It'll be interesting to see how that tension plays out.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this impacts, everyday Americans. Will it lead to lower energy prices? Will it create new geopolitical risks? It's a lot to wrap our heads around.
Absolutely. And then there's that whole meta controversy, the glitch that automatically subscribed users to Trump and Vice President Vance's accounts.
Oh, right. Yeah, it seemed like everyone was suddenly following them. What was that all about?
Well, Meta claims it was a technical error, but some people are questioning whether it was intentional, especially given Trump's history with social media.
It does make you wonder, especially considering the sheer number of people who were affected. If it wasn't a glitch, what does that say about the power of these social media platforms to shape political discourse?
Yeah, it's a big concern. And it ties into a larger debate about the role of these tech companies in our democracy. Are they neutral platforms, or do they have an agenda? And how do we ensure transparency and accountability in a space where information spreads so quickly.
Yeah, it feels like we're in uncharted territory. And with Trump back in the White House, it's hard to predict what the next 4 years will hold.
It's definitely a time of uncertainty. But I think it's important to remember that we've been through periods of upheaval before, and we've always found a way to adapt and move forward.
That's reassuring, but it still feels overwhelming sometimes, trying to keep up with all the changes and make sense of what it all means.
I get it. It's a lot to process. But I think the key is to stay engaged, stay informed, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And remember, we're all in this together. By having these conversations, by trying to understand different perspectives, we can hopefully navigate these challenges and create a better future.
You're right. It's easy to feel helpless, but we do have a voice, and it's more important than ever to use it. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here. From pardons to policy shifts, Saudi investments to social media manipulation, it feels like we've taken a whirlwind tour of the first week of Trump's second term. What stands out to you the most?
Honestly, it's the sheer boldness and unpredictability of it all. Trump is clearly not afraid to shake things up, even if it means breaking with tradition or alienating allies, and that makes it incredibly difficult to predict what will happen next.
Yeah. It's like watching a high-stakes game of chess unfold in real time. And we're all just trying to figure out what the end game is. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be a wild ride.
Absolutely. And I think the key takeaway for our listeners is this. Stay curious, stay informed, and don't be afraid to challenge your assumptions. Because the world is changing rapidly, and we all need to be prepared to adapt.
I love that. Okay, so given everything we've discussed today, what do you think will be the defining characteristic of Trump's second term?
That's a tough question. But if I had to choose, I'd say it's disruption. Whether it's disrupting political norms, global alliances, or even our understanding of truth and reality, Trump seems determined to shake things up. And that will have profound consequences, for better or for worse.
Disruption. It's a powerful word. And it definitely captures the essence of what we've been seeing. So how should our listener prepare for a future defined by disruption? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the most important thing is to cultivate resilience and adaptability. We need to be able to think critically, to question information, and to be open to new ideas and perspectives. Because in a world of constant change, the ability to learn and adapt will be crucial.
Resilience and adaptability, those are great words to keep in mind as we navigate this uncertain terrain. And maybe even embrace the disruption, who knows?
Exactly. Embrace the chaos, find the opportunity in the challenge, and never stop learning.
Okay, that's a fantastic note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Trump's second term.
It's been a pleasure.
Wow, it feels like we covered a whole lot in such a short amount of time. From mass pardons to policy overhauls and everything in between. It's hard to believe this was just the first week.
Yeah, and we haven't even touched on the potential global reaction to all of this. Just imagine all the diplomatic scrambling happening behind the scenes as other countries try to adjust to this new reality.
It's like the whole world's just holding its breath, waiting to see what Trump will do next.
It's definitely created a lot of uncertainty on the world stage. Think about it. The U.S. pulling out of those major international agreements like the Paris Agreement, that could have ripple effects on global climate change efforts.
Right.
And then there's the massive Saudi investment. What does that mean for the balance of power in the Middle East? Or for oil prices globally?
Yeah, it feels like we're at a tipping point in so many ways. And with social media playing such a huge role in shaping public opinion, it's hard to know what to trust or believe anymore.
Yeah, that's a key takeaway here. We're all navigating this increasingly complex information landscape. It's more important than ever to be critical of what we see online, to check our sources and to engage in thoughtful dialogue with people who hold different viewpoints.
So what can we do? How do we stay informed, engaged in a world that feels increasingly chaotic and unpredictable?
Well, I think the first step is just to acknowledge that complexity. Yeah. Recognize that there are rarely easy answers or simple solutions. Embrace the messiness of it all.
That's a good point. It's easy to get overwhelmed and just want to tune everything out, but that's not the answer either.
Exactly. We can't afford to be passive observers. We need to be active participants in shaping the future we want to see. And that starts with staying informed, thinking critically, and engaging in constructive dialogue.
It feels like we've gone from 0 to 60 in just a week. What do you think the lasting impact of Trump's second term will be?
Ooh, that's impossible to say for sure. But one thing's certain. we're in for a wild ride, and the decisions made during this time will have far-reaching consequences. The only way to navigate it all is to stay engaged, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.
Well, this has been quite a deep dive. Thanks for walking us through all of this. I think we're all leaving with a lot to think about.
It's been a pleasure. And remember, this is just the beginning. Stay tuned, because things are about to get very interesting.
That's it for our deep dive into the the whirlwind first week of Trump's second term. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and remember, the future is what we make it.